Well, billions of rands in assets and cash remain unclaimed in South Africa, partly due to there not being any last will and testament signed by the deceased. Today, South Africa begins the observation of National Wills Week to educate the public about why it is important to have a will. We are joined by Zail Hector, the CEO of a fintech-based company, ClickTech, to talk more about the research they recently did for their own company on the state of wills in SA. Good evening, Zail. Let's start here. In South Africa today, how many people have wills and how many people do not have wills?
Well, Annie, great to be with you. Yeah, it's a real problem. In South Africa today, the latest statistics show us that as little as 30% of people that die in South Africa have a will in place. On the other side, that means that 70% of people, obviously, that don't have a will in place when they die. And the problem with that is that it leads to all sorts of issues. You can imagine delays in the States. You can imagine assets being frozen for a very long time while those delays are going on. And also, we've got a problem which we've all heard about, unfortunately, is the infighting that sometimes happens between families, without clear guidance of what one's last wishes are.
If 70% of people do not have wills, then who benefits from not having a will?
Well, it's a good question. Look, if you don't have a will, your will's going to be wound up by the executors according to the laws of interstate succession. And that's really a simple way of saying that the estate is going to be wound up according to the state's will, if you want to put it like that. And the state will dictate who gets what, from the estate. So effectively, you lose control of your last wishes and really having a say what happens with that. So unfortunately, even today, we hear stories of wills going missing, if you want to call it that, where people maybe are written out of wills. Those people that do have wills are written out. And what ends up happening is people inherit that shouldn't be. So I suppose it's a lot more than just having a will. It's making sure that it's also securely stored and the right people know where it is.
And of course, the state might end up, taking all your assets because you did not leave a valid will, and perhaps there is a friction and a fight between family members and loved ones.
That can happen. I mean, if there's no one to inherit it from an estate, so there's no family that's left. Over a prescribed period of time, the state will actually take that money in hand. So it's vital. I mean, even if you don't have a direct family, it's better to have a will and then leave it to a close friend, or even an organization. Maybe it's a religious organization that you could leave your estate to, or even to there's a Society Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Whatever it may be, you can rather have a will and do that than not leave it to anyone.
That statistic there that you shared of 70% of South Africans are dying without a will is kind of astounding, seeing that you can have a will at an early stage of 16 in South Africa. But talk to us about how easy it is to get a will in South Africa, how easy it's become, and how much does it cost?
Oh, sure. So I think, when we started on our journey in the fintech space, we obviously did quite a bit of research. And we found that when we asked people, would you like a will or do you need one? More than 90% of people said yes, they do need one. But a lot of people, when we asked them, said, well, why don't you have one? It was, well, they don't have the time. So when people say they don't have time, it really means that it's not accessible. And, there's this level of, high motivation and being able to actually make it easy for someone to get to. And I think with, technology now is the way that it is, with this, fourth industrial revolution around technology, we looked at that problem and said, look, how can we make it really easy for people to get wills? Now, of course, cost can be prohibitive too, and like I said, time. So a lot of people can't take time off work to go and have a will drawn up. And then often if you're going to go and speak, to attorneys and that, it can be cost prohibitive also. So we've looked at it to say, look, how can we make it as affordable as possible so that every South African can have a will in their hands and preferably in the palm of their hands.
Zail, you've come up with an innovative, development which is called a smart will that many of the people I know have actually used because of COVID-19 being with us, people being on lockdown, they couldn't meet, they were worried about death and all these sort of things. Tell us about your, development.
Yeah, sure. Let's just talk a little bit about COVID. So it's been quite amazing to see how many people have had to engage online now, because especially when we had the first lockdown, no one could get out, and everyone was concerned about what happens if I get this and I die. And unfortunately, we know how many South Africans that's become a reality for. Unfortunately, I think we've all know people or know of people that have passed away. And I think, so we had, from year on year, we had over 500% increase. And even this year, a year later, we even seen greater than that. So there's a massive demand for that. So what we did is we said, look, let's create Smart Will. Let's make it accessible for South Africans to do it digitally in the palm of your hand, using your smartphone or a desktop computer. And we looked at it to really say, how can we make a real quality will? So we make sure that it's valid. We make sure that we have fiduciary experts checking every single will that goes out, and it's really is an amazing service. And what we've done now through Wills Week is we've partnered with a clientele to put 1,000 wills in people's hands that's sponsored by clientele, and that's going to allow the everyday South African to go and get a will. It's on a first come first served basis at smartwill.co.za, and it's for life. With unlimited updates. All you have to do is register on the website and complete your will in the next 7 days. And that's really just kicking off a new initiative that we are forming, which is called Fund SA, where we're looking to form partnerships with corporate South Africa to actually help us put wills in people's hands. And this is just the start of that, and we're really excited about that.
Zail, billions of rands every year go unclaimed because people don't have valid wills, or their wills are actually non-existent, and they die without that important document. What happens when most people die and their kids haven't turned 18 yet?
Yeah, so let's just talk about the billions of rands that are unclaimed. I think that's a real problem. I think the latest stats showing about 43 billion rand that is unclaimed assets. So it's important, I think, in terms of planning, to get your will in place first, because as part of that process, you're going to need to identify what are your policies and, what are the assets that you own in investments, to make sure that that's well known. So what we've done as part of our process, we identify that. So when the person dies, we have that information. Immediately up front, and by having that up front, we can wind up the estates a lot quicker, and we make sure that those policies and those investments don't go missing. Very importantly, also, like you said, under the age of 18, is if you're a parent and your children are minors, and so you die, you need to have some sort of structure to actually protect your cash and your assets that you're going to make available to look after them. And you use that testamentary trust to do that with trustees to make sure that that's in place. And your will actually is set up to make sure that that's in place to protect your children until they have an age to inherit, and ring fences that money so no one else can abuse it.
Zail Hector, the CEO of Click Tech, telling us there that it's much more easier than we think to actually get a will within a very, very short space of time. And also talking about that 43 billion rand that's unclaimed. And if many of you are interested in that, you can go to the Financial Sector Conduct Authority website to check through with your ID number, so that you can find out if there is any pension money and benefits that are unclaimed, that is in your family's name or in your name, that is. Thank you very much, Zain, for your time.